No problem. Once again, incredible impression pulled out of nowhere from J. Dyer's arsenal of impressions. Jordan Maxwell. It's great.
Thanks.
So I was raised Protestant.
Are you saying that there are no pterodactyls over Los Angeles?
I was going to ask if
I actually saw, before I passed away, I saw a pterodactyl flying over my house in Los Angeles. Go ahead.
I was going to ask if you could explain the hypostasis or something.
Right.
This is unnecessary. I was raised Protestant, did a dispensationalism detox over the past few years, came to be a pretty comprehensive critic of that system, and now I'm an Orthodox Inquirer, and I just want to say thanks for everything you do. So, oddball question. How does sin work if we get the effects of sin, such as death, but not a sin nature? Like, how do we end up being sinful, like from what seems to be the very outset, if it's not in our nature? Because obviously it's not like in our DNA, our genes. It's not a spirit that passes through the umbilical cord or anything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, so the way we would say that the effects of Adam's sin pass on to all of his descendants, but not the personal guilt. So for us, guilt or sin is always a specific action, right? James says that desire, when it is consented to, it gives birth to sin. So the desires themselves, the passions themselves, are not even sin. Sin is literally just the concession of the will or the acquiescence of the will to an action that's against God's law or the Ten Commandments, the moral law, etc. That's what a sin is. And so what we get from Adam is a nature that is out of whack. It is mortal. It is liable to fluctuation and failing and deviation, but it's not itself evil. There's no such thing as an evil nature, because everything that has nature or has being or has existence is something that God created, right? And when God created, he said it is good. So there could never be such a thing as an evil nature or an evil essence or evil being. And that's why evil is always a privation. And in this case, moral evil is an action of the will against the good. So that's in every case what evil is. Even your sin, you don't have Adam's sin in terms of guilt or in terms of personal actual sin. You have the effects of Adam's sin that by the time you become, of the age of consent or whatever, and I don't mean that in the sexual sense, I mean the age of consent in terms of when you become a person who's guilty of moral reasoning and then violating that moral reasoning, it could be different for different people.
Excellent. So
that's when it becomes a sin.
The damaged human nature in tandem with the fallen world around us facilitate the conditions for us to choose to use our free will in a sinful way.
But we also do have within us what Paul calls a law of sin. It's not literally a law of sin. He's talking about our passions being out of whack, right? And so, take the desire for food. The desire for food is a blameless passion. There's nothing wrong with it. God put that in us, and even after the fall, it's a good thing so that we sustain our life, our body. But when I get overly indulged and I commit the sin of gluttony, I'm overindulging a passion that is itself good. But because I'm fallen, I sometimes give in to the passions, and thus the passions are in a sense out of whack. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and obviously this is an anthropological thing that has to do with Christology too, which is why I started looking so critically at the notion of sin nature, and everything you talk about referencing Saint Maximus is an amazing system of logic gates that reinforce, and in a way I kind of think of it as a Rupert's drop. You can have this surface area around the end of it that is so impenetrable, but then if you go back to the tail, the very tip end of it, the core of it, and anything there is fragmented, the whole thing shatters. So would you say Christ had the passions and he may have felt would he have experienced the inward,
No, this is actually a great question. Passions? In fact, I'm glad you brought this up because it's Ad Thalassium. I think it's either 23 or 25. But if you have the little blue St. Vladimir Seminary book of Maximus, there's a really important section in there on this question, and we believe that Jesus did not have the blameful passions. So he did not contract anything to do with ancestral or original sin from Adam, because he's born of the Virgin and he's born of the Holy Spirit. So he's the new Adam, but he willfully took on the blameless passions and mortality in order to save our human nature. So this is a great point, and this is why Maximus makes a distinction between the blameful passions and the blameless passions. So Christ had the latter and not the former.
Blameless passions. Okay, that's
so that would be like Christ got tired, Christ hungered, he got thirsty. He in the garden he desired not to die. Right, let this cup pass from me, yet not my will, but thy will be done. St. Maximus says that is him submitting his natural desire to not die, which is a good and healthy thing. It's a blameless passion. But Jesus did not have lust or gluttony or anything like that.
Okay, and then clarification on a similar thing. He assumed what he came to redeem on the cross, and
right.
So by assuming the blameless passions, how does that and I still have learning to do in regards to like how legalistic or not that whole
great
thing on the cross occurred.
Right. These are great questions. I'll tell you where to read about that too. Go ahead.
So how does dying on the cross with the blameless passions pay the price, or maybe that's still a misconception I need to get out of my system? The courtroom transactional type view of it.
Well, that's it, right? So the courtroom transactional side of it is just one side of it. By the way, it's Ad Thalassium 21. So if you have the little blue St. Vladimir's book,
I'll take note to get this.
It's called On the Cosmic Mystery of Christ. And then if you go to page 109, it's called Christ's Conquest of the Human Passions, Ad Thalassium 21. If you have Ad Thalassium, and you can also just look up paragraph 21. But so this whole chapter is about Christ conquering the blameless passions, such as the desire for food, the desire for sleep, etc. Saint Cyril says that when Christ was resurrected, he transcended even the blameless passions. And so the human nature that he assumed, it didn't even require food, it didn't require sleep, it didn't require water anymore. But he willed to take on those things in his incarnation to heal the totality of our nature. So by partaking in his deified human nature, his perfected and healed human nature, it becomes the medicine for our fallen human nature. And that's in turn what deifies us. So in regard to what's happening on the cross, if you read John Damascus's book on the Orthodox Faith, book 3, and it's the last 4 or 5 paragraphs, he does probably one of the best expositions of what exactly is happening on the cross. And separate from that, I would get the Pomazansky book, Orthodox Dogmatic Theology. And I thank you for your question, because in the Pomazansky book, there's the chapter. I have 2 copies. Let me see. I don't have a copy here. It's at the other place. But there's a chapter on the deacon Satyricos and the controversy, or the section. It's not a whole chapter, but it's the controversy over what happened in the offering of Christ. And it will discuss this controversy as that's very good for refuting kind of the Protestant idea of PSA from the Orthodox perspective. And for us, the liturgy refutes it. Not just the liturgy. The liturgy reflects what's in the scriptures, but it deals with the question of what's being offered in the Eucharistic offering. Is the offering of the person of the Son to the Father, which would be kind of an Anselmian position, an Anselm's atonement theory, or is the person of the Son offering the human nature in a fully triadic way to the Father in the Spirit? And of course, the answer is that it's the latter. The Son, as the divine person of the Word, the second person of the Trinity, is offering the deified human nature to the Father in the Spirit. So it's a triadic action, and it is not just an action of one person to another in the Trinity, nor is it just the Son paying a debt to the Father, because this council, this Byzantine Synod, also reaffirms that there's no creature that could pay God. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. How could a created thing pay off God? And that right there destroys the whole PSA, Protestant imputational theory. The infinite God can't be paid off by a human nature. So it is an action of love when the Son offers his humanity to the Father in the Spirit.